Good evening, all.
Good
Thank
evening.
you for joining us tonight as we kick off World Water Week with three really special guests we have with us today. We've got Nicole Hill, Andrea Pierce, and Valerie Blakely. And you may have had an opportunity to read a little bit about who they are, or you might have been following their work for a long time and know who they are. And we'll go into a little deeper introductions in a moment. But wanted to thank you for joining this. Michigan Unitarian Universalist Social Justice Network has been working on water justice for many years, particularly with the People's Water Board Coalition. We're a member of that coalition that has been, since the formation, working for affordable water for folks, particularly in Detroit and Highland Park, but has grown to really be looking at affordable water issues, clean water issues across the state of Michigan. We joined the fight when we learned of the Flint's water poisoning. We've joined the fight around shutting down Line 5, Line 3, and other devastating things that are happening to our water all around the Great Lakes. And so I want to thank the Unitarian Universalist church members who've been really active in that too. Many of our churches have had speakers. I remember Nicole and I went out to a church,
Yeah.
gosh, that was like 4 or 5 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was.
And I want to remind you that Nicole, I bet Valerie and Andrea would be welcome the opportunity too to come speak by Zoom or in person at some of our UU congregations about some of the water justice work that they have been involved with. So
Definitely.
again, thank you for joining us. If you haven't heard about MOOSEGEN, our acronym, and you want to learn more about us, our work is at uujustice.org. We recently started a YouTube channel. So in a few days, we'll get this posted to our YouTube channel and up on our website so that it can continue to be viewed. I am just really excited to have these folks with me today because these are my comrades. These are my friends. These are folks that I am in organizing meetings, art builds, and in the streets and in and outside of courtrooms with
Yeah.
for a decade. I think all of you I've been working for like about 10 years, and it just feels really good to have you in this space with me tonight. I've done number of web events with MOOSEGEN, particularly around environmental justice and some racial justice issues. And I've never just been with my friends, and so it's really fun. And so as we prepared, I said we're just going to kind of keep this casual and pull people into our conversation. But I want to start by introducing you to my friend Nicole Hill, who before I made a move out of Detroit, we were neighbors and we lived close together. And she is still a Detroiter, a mother. She's working really hard on People's Water Board issues and has gotten involved and even started her own business around this type of work. So I'm going to have her share more about herself and her story and the work that she wants you to know about around World Water Week. Thanks, Nicole.
Okay. Thank you for having me and everybody coming out. It's most appreciated. And as Jennifer said, I'm a mom to seven. I'm a grandmom to seven. And I personally believe that water and environment is a place where I'm supposed to be. You hear people all the time say, this is my life's mission. This is the work I was meant to do. I feel for a number of reasons, this was the work I am supposed to do. First of all, I was born in the middle of the summer. My astrological sign, which I don't follow astrology, but I am considered a Cancer, which is a water creature because we're a crab. And then I had always been back and forth to up here to Detroit. I was staying in New Orleans, and I literally had to come back up here due to Hurricane Katrina. So I've been surrounded. I feel like I've always been surrounded by water and environment, which technically I have. And when I came up here, I got smack dab into the middle of the massive shutoffs that were going on across the city of Detroit due to emergency management. I fell smack dab in the midst of the Flint water crisis and helping my Flint comrades. And so I started out as an impacted person in this work. And I still consider myself an impacted person, But somewhere along my journey, I transformed from just being an impacted person to being an advocate and an activist. And so this is what my life is meant to be doing. And so um I came into this work that way. And over the past decade or so, I have transformed into who I am today. And so that's a little bit about me. And if it's permitted, I'll just tell you a little bit about what the organization that I'm now involved with, which is the People's Water Board Coalition, I'm currently working on. And I can go into that and tell you what we have prepared for World Water Day and what our goal is for Michigan. So
That sounds great.
yeah. So, and of course, I'm open to any questions. Feel free to jump in with any questions. Currently, what we're doing is we have World Water Day, which is actually March 22nd. And this year's, there's always a like event that we work around. So this year, our thing is water and peace. And so, with that being said, we plan to go to Lansing for 2 days, and then which will be Tuesday and Wednesday, and then we will be trying to talk to some of our legislators. We currently have a water affordability packet that is going through our legislation. We hope to get everything passed. Our bill, our list of packets or our bill packets are saying that no one should be across Michigan paying any more than 3% of their household income towards water. So that water is affordable for all Michiganders. We also have different ones that revolve around the lead service lines, water contamination, and decriminalization of water reconnection. As of right now, if you deal with a water shutoff and you attempt to have your water restored, it's considered a felony. So you could go to prison for 5 years for trying to make sure that your family has life-giving water, which is a necessity for every living thing to survive. And so we're trying to change that, and we're trying to make water affordable for all Michiganders. And that's part of what the People's Water Board Coalition currently is. Their mission is to make sure that everyone has access to clean, affordable, safe, potable drinking water and sanitation. And so we'll plan on speaking with some of our leaders on Tuesday and Wednesday. On Thursday, we have people going to Cincinnati to deal with issues around contamination and things like that around some of our pipelines. And then on Friday, we culminate with a town hall meeting in Highland Park, which is another city in Metro Detroit that has been dramatically devastated by water insecurity issues. And we really just want people to learn about the issues around water. I always try to describe it like this. I tell people, like, even if you feel like you're able to afford your water, oh my goodness, sorry about that. Even if you're able to afford like your water bill, there still is a way for you to be affected. A lot of people don't realize that if someone in your neighborhood has a water shut off for whatever reason, and that water sits in the pipeline stagnant, when it starts flowing again, that stagnation and bacteria can flow into your water system and come out of your faucet as well, which can cause you to have issues with contamination as well. Even if you're not directly affected, you can indirectly be affected by issues with water insecurity and water shutoffs and contamination. So, it's very important that we all try to find ways to get involved. And there are ways that everyone can get involved. We understand as a coalition that everyone cannot get out and protest and march and travel here and there, but you can make phone calls to your legislator, or you can help phone bank, or you could just attend some of the meetings that various water advocacy groups have, just so you're informed and take that information back to your community. It's very easy to find a place where you fit in.
Nicole, I remember when I first met you, um, around the time of the major water shutoffs in Detroit around the time of the bankruptcy about 10 years ago. And I remember myself as a member of People's Water Board going down my block and passing out flyers and letting people know what they could do if their water was shut off, what
Mhm.
resources were available. People's Water Board was helping to supply people with temporary bottled water. Was walking up the block at that time, Detroit, um, sewage and water department was putting blue lines on the sidewalk, spray painting blue lines where they were telling the people to come turn off people's water, and it was just disgusting to me how many blue lines I was seeing and how many people's stories I was hearing. And then I met you in that work, and then I met Valerie in that work, and both of you
Yeah.
have shared many times, both your personal stories with water shut off and learning what your neighbors were going through. And I wonder both if you and Valerie could share a little bit more about that, because a lot of people have heard about the water shutoffs, but may not have been impacted themselves or know somebody that has. And unless you have and have heard the stories, you might not really know what it means. You might know you can't go run a glass of water for yourself or flush your toilet, but some of the other ways that it impacts people we don't even think about. Could you share some of
Wow.
that?
Wow. Well, as you can hear, I keep coughing. I'll start right there since it made its appearance. So I did live through a water shut off. My water was shut off for 8 weeks the
She
first time
never
it was
recovered
shut off,
from it. Never.
and I've never recovered from it at all. I ended up um being in the hospital. I already have asthma. I've had it since I was a child, but it's always been manageable. But this time I remember I got really sick. We honestly had just got finished meeting with the United Nations, and I'm sure Valerie remembers this. And I went to the meeting and I literally felt horrible. And I'm like, maybe I'm getting the flu. It's October, the weather's kind of wishy-washy. I went home, I could not sleep. I literally woke up at like 3 o'clock in the morning and was like, I can't do this. I have to go to the hospital. I went to the hospital, and at the time, they thought I had enterovirus, or they thought that I had Ebola, even. They didn't know because they were like, have you been out the country? Do you work around children? And I was in the hospital. I was hospitalized with, I think, like a fever of like 104. But I was cold. I had chills. And I ended up having bacterial pneumonia because of one of the things you do, some of the things you do when you don't have water in order to survive is, of course, you stop drinking it because that's like the first thing you think you can do to conserve the little bit of bottled water that you have. Then you learn how to do something which I've told this story and I've really gotten better over the years. Like, I don't burst into tears when I tell it anymore, but you learn how to recycle water. And this is something that, after doing my own research about water issues around the world, I found only happens in some of the most underdeveloped, under resourced countries. but it was happening here in the city, in Michigan, in Detroit, where you decide to only cook things where you can have the water still afterwards to recycle to do other uses. So everything you do, your goal is to save as much water as you can to make sure you can flush your toilet. So you save your dishwater to flush your toilet. If you boil food, you make sure you boil foods that don't require the water to evaporate. And you use all of that water to flush your toilet. Um, and of course, if you have children, you really don't think about utilizing any water yourself because you try to reserve every single drop for your children. And at the time, I did have 3 children in my home that were all minor children. None of them were adults where they could like go off on their own and be all right. So I did a lot of that. And I also, part of the reason I ended up in the hospital outside of dehydration and that damage to your immune system is that I would clean my house with undiluted cleaning products. Like I would put straight bleach on the floor to make sure my house was sanitized. I would pour bleach into my toilet bowl. I would use, you know, all undiluted products, and these are products that clearly say on the bottle, you use this ratio to this ratio of water. And I would just cut the water out because I was trying to conserve water. And due to breathing and inhaling a lot of those fumes, I then damaged my lungs even further. So now I have what the doctor calls compromised lungs. So I have to be very careful what I do. Um, and it's been very difficult during COVID because immediately when you cough, people are like, oh, she has COVID. And I'm like, I'm probably the least likely person to get COVID because I'm going to take the most precautions because I already know that my lungs are damaged and I can't afford to take another hit on my lungs at all. And that's kind of what really brought me into this work. I immediately started seeking resources to find out what was going on because the water company, by the way, tells you absolutely nothing when you contact them. They could not tell me why my bill had escalated. They could not tell me why they cut my water off. And literally at the height of it, I was paying water bills in upwards of $450 to $500 per month for water alone.
Yeah, I'm
And
nodding my head because I remember that, Nicole, and I think that that's something too that when people hear that people can't afford or haven't paid their water bill, they think, well, first of all, they think, what? The water bill's not that high because in a lot of the
mhm.
suburbs, it's not as high as it is in Detroit. And there's a lot of important information about that. But even without going into that, yeah, say more about why your water bill was 400.
Most people think the water bill, when they hear someone say, my water bill was $400 a month, or this is the staggering one. And I know you and Valerie remember this, Jennifer, when I had to show my water bill in its totality, and it was $5,700, despite the fact that I have been paying $400, $500 a month on my water bill. And when you call the water department and you try to dispute it, first of all, you weren't allowed to dispute it unless it was the current bill. And then all you're told from them is its actual water usage, despite the fact that they actually weren't coming out reading your meter. They were giving you estimated bills. But in my particular situation, I literally did all the investigation my own, um, and discovered that a house that I had moved out of 2 years prior to me moving where I was living at the time, when I moved, they told me my bill had to be a zero balance so I could transfer it to my new address. I made sure that was done. And they said, well, we don't cut the water off because we don't want anybody's pipes to get damaged. We reverted back to the property owner's name. They did not do that. They just left it in my name Eventually, someone came and was squatting in the house, and they were just like, "Hey, we got water. We don't have to pay for it. The water's on, the electricity's on. We're just gonna live here." And I found that out by happenstance that one of the young ladies that went to the school went lived in the home, went to school with my daughter and my niece, and befriended them. And one day, I was picking my kids up from school, and they were like, "Well, can you give my friend a ride home?" And I'm like, I guess so. Sure. And I'm telling her, she's telling me where she's going. I'm like, oh, I used to live on that street. Okay. We get there and I'm like, well, where's your house? And she's like, keep going. I'm like, oh, okay, this is down here by where our old house is. And then she's like, stop right here. And it's literally in front of my old house. And I'm just like, oh, wow. Like, and I could tell that, they were squatting because the house was still boarded up. The only thing they had managed to get open was the door. And I thought about that, and my first instinct was to immediately think like, oh, should I call the police? Tell them that these people are squatting, and maybe this has something to do with my bill. But I honestly felt bad because I didn't know their situation as to why they were squatting. And housing insecurity is very real also. So I went back to the water department and I told them, I said, there's somebody in the old house that I'm in. I don't know the people, but they have to be using water. And they said, well, there's nothing we can do about it. Then I found out that my address had been given, thanks to identity theft, to someone to use to get water on the east side of Detroit. And I have never lived on the east side of Detroit in my life. And even with me finding out all of this, they still refused to do anything about my bill or restore my water at that time.
Wow. How many years ago was that?
It was 10 years ago.
Wow, wow. And I
Yeah.
remember at that time too, and I think at that time I was working on the water justice hotline that there was, and I know hearing stories from Val's neighborhood and all the stories that we were collecting even beyond your own. It's like people listening would hear that story and think would certainly recognize, right? Like how awful that is and how many like illegal pieces of the situation were going on and how ridiculous it wasn't that the water department wasn't listening or handling it. And you would listen to that and you would think that that was the only story like that or the only, right, like outrageous story like that. And the number
Mhm.
of stories that we were hearing like that or just all kinds of different ridiculous things that yeah, Val, do you want to jump in and share anything about some of the stories you heard?
My neighborhood lived it. First of all, Nicole, thank you for always telling your story. I can't listen to it without crying, but also she didn't talk about what it was like to move her kids out the house because she
Yeah,
was
I
nothing.
didn't talk about that part.
I know
Uh,
that backstory. I know that. So I can't hear Nicole's story without my heart breaking. I love you. Um, I watched my whole neighborhood be shut off. Three blocks, all of us except for me because I happened to be up and I went downstairs and I stood over my thing,
Same
the
for you
water
stood over
access
your
point.
yeah, where
I
they
stood
were
over my water access point. It wasn't scary, it wasn't heroic, it wasn't anything like whatever. I happened to be up. I saw them outside. I have 5 children in the house and said, you can't shut off my water. Maureen Taylor, within 30 minutes of that happening, called and got me a 30-day stay on my water bill. And that's when I joined the People's Water Board Coalition and said, we are not going to do this. We are not going to
mhm.
shut off whole neighborhoods at one time. Um, and it took us 2 weeks to get everybody turned back on. And there was many, many stories like Nicole's. We delivered water in the middle of the night to people who, I'm sorry, I can't talk about this without really
It's
feeling that. We
okay.
delivered water in the middle of the night to single mothers who didn't want their neighbors to know that they didn't have water because they didn't want to lose their kids. It was a tragic time. It's been 10 years that we've been fighting. And here we are now. We've got a water affordability plan here in Detroit that is not perfect. We organized for years and years and years. The resistance was, well, we made it happen. It took time, but we made it happen.
I couldn't believe that press conference when the water affordability plan was released and Gary Brown was up there with our water justice activists at the
I
mic.
know.
Gary Brown from
It's
the
very
Detroit
difficult.
Water and Sewage Department, who has been, you know, ignoring us and shunning us and pushing out of spaces all these years. And that, yes, that we're talking about what happened 10 years ago and we're raising people's stories, and people living without water are still facing these things, and there are still water shutoffs, but we have come a long way. And, you know, it's been a lot because of Val and Nicole sharing their stories, and Andrea and I and other folks, you know, getting out there.
Thousands of people organizing, hundreds of people organizing, a small few that just spent their lives organizing. Like, thank you to the water warriors, right?
Detroit, I think it's a huge success. We're not where we need to be. The water affordability plan in Detroit is not perfect. We're working on state legislation now. People are still dealing with water shutoffs. Another thing that Nicole mentioned that I just don't want to like fly over real quick is Highland Park, because I think too a lot of people have heard about the water shutoffs and poisoned water in Flint and associate, you know, things with Detroit and Flint. But can you share a little bit more with us about? And there's been multiple things that have happened with Highland Park and their water also over the last 10 years. But, you know, some you know, highlights isn't even the right word, right? Some of the particular things that have happened, and maybe if people come Friday to hear this people from Highland Park speak, what might they expect to hear about what's going on in Highland Park now? What do the people in Highland Park want them to know? That's for Nicole or Val.
Oh, you want to go first, Val? I feel like I've
Absolutely.
like dominated the conversation.
Absolutely, and I don't want to dominate the conversation. Look, the people of Highland Park have, after years of litigation, thank you, Andrea.
Yes.
After years of litigation and in the streets have reached, and I'm telling you, the warriors of the movement are in Highland Park. Okay, these are and they're women, they're elder Black women who are not taking no shit from anybody. I'm sorry, maybe I shouldn't have said that, but yes, let's just point that out. Look, they've come to an agreement. They've ended all the legal stuff and the court battles with an agreement with GLEWA, the Great Lakes Water Authority, which we should have never had. It's absolutely criminal that we even have them, but they had to, with the state of Michigan. Somehow we ended up with a water authority. Anyway, that's probably a whole nother story for a whole nother program. But so they have been in the streets and fighting for years, and they're having a town. They have come up with an agreement that where the state of Michigan, thank you, Gretchen Whitmer, was like, yeah, Highland Park matters, and like allotted all of this money. Now the state and there's an agreement with the state and with GLEWA that Highland Park is going to get help to pay their water bills. There's also a lot of really, let's call it different word for BS, BS. As far as like these undertones of them having to, for the next 6 months, their water bills in Highland Park, which are already totally unaffordable, just like Detroit's, are going to go up 60% for the next 6 months, so that these changes and the upgrade to their systems so that they can get back on their own water system, like, is going to, so for 6 months it's going to double, and then after that it's not going to go all the way back down like to what it should be, to an affordable. We look at it like this from the People's Water Board. You get 3% of your annual income. That's how much you can pay for your water bill. You're capped at that. That's what we're expecting. That's what these bills will do. The Michigan water affordability legislation is so important because it's really going to help the people of Highland Park. Now, when we go to the community meeting that's happening on the 22nd, last thing I'm going to say, the community meeting that's happening on the 22nd, Wayne Metro and Thaw are going to be there distributing. So people need to go. If you know people in Highland Park that are having water issues, even if they don't, it matters. This is going to matter to them. Please go and get signed up. It's the only way that that money is going to get to the community. And we all know if that money sits in a kitty somewhere and isn't distributed to the community, it'll go to a landmark or a waterfall or some sort of like, we all know this, like a sign or some crazy stuff, right? A park. People
They'll
in Highland
rename a
Park
street.
have been struggling so long. They deserve water affordability. The bills that we're pushing for World Water Day will help that. But also right now we need every Highland Parker to get those funds. That's all I'm going to say. Nicole.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to concur with everything that Valerie said. And I just wanted to also say that one of the biggest reasons that Highland Park has huge water bills outside of what Valerie said is that they were billed and charged for water that was used by the state of Michigan to do things like build the Q line. And when MDOT did work on things on the roads in Michigan and utilized water, they used Highland Park's water and then just left the bill there for them to pay for. And that happens a lot, sadly, with some of our construction and things that go on in and across Michigan. We think that it's coming out of the Michigan budget and it's coming out the residents' budget. So I just wanted to add
It's a mess.
that.
I know the event in Highland Park, I'm just really interested in being there myself. I know a large intention of it is to reach impacted folks in Highland Park to get resources to them, hear
Yeah.
stories, make connections. But they also, the folks in Highland Park who are organizing really want other folks to attend too, who are outside of Highland Park, who aren't directly impacted by the situation, to learn more. And there was a movie done many years ago about what's happened in Highland Park, and it's like time for another movie to catch up. There's been so many things that have happened there that I can't even, as a water warrior, as a water protector, follow and keep up and share what's happening there. I want to thank Andrea, who's posted a couple times links to the legislation that People's Water Board is working on in the chat. And so if you're not already directly connected to that information, you can find it in the chat. And then I'll also be sending out that information along with our video in a couple days. And we hope, we can still get some folks who are listening or some folks that will, watch this on video to come and join us. There's still room to get on the bus Wednesday. There's a free bus going from Detroit with a meal and a t-shirt if you want to participate in talking to your legislators in our press conference. And then there's another group of folks going up again Wednesday to talk to legislators to Lansing. So if you want to get connected to that and you don't know how to quickly, follow up with me after that and I can help to get you there. Of course, there will continue to be many opportunities to get involved even after World Water Week is over. As Valerie pointed out yesterday, even after all these bills are passed, the work is not going to stop. There is still an awful lot of work to do. There are still people in Flint who don't have clean water. I see that Marguerite has her hand up, and also somebody had a question in the chat, Air Lee, and I wonder, Margaret, if you just want to go ahead and ask your question, and Air Lee, if you'd like to come off mute and ask your question.
I'm astounded at this. I'm new to Detroit, as I've been here about 8 months and didn't know Detroit. I had heard of Flint 10 years ago. And in the Free Press was that they have not had a penny from the settlement from 10 years ago. And they also aren't getting the lead pipes swapped out soon enough. So I sort of thought, well, that's one area. Well, my gosh, what I've just heard is unbelievable. Is there some, and oh, by the way, as soon as I saw that, I did write the governor, and I wrote my state rep. Hadn't heard a word, didn't expect to, but isn't there isn't there laws here or somebody? This is just unreal. Well, Flint was pretty much African American people who were, I think, I mean, it was, I mean, that's what happens 10 years ago, except it's still
Yeah.
happening. Sure, the lawyers have been paid, but the residents have. So I don't have a whole lot to offer, except that I'm astounded that it's like, where are we in the Wild West? What is it? What in the world? These are citizens who are suffering. It's beyond me. So that's all. It's not you've certainly
Agreed.
made me aware. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
It's from
I
the
just
greed.
wanted to say one thing in regards to that before we move on. A lot of the reason people heard of Flint and didn't hear of Detroit is because there was this distorted narrative that was pushed out. Like the people in Flint were victimized with lead laden water, which by all means is absolutely true. But in Detroit, it was those people are too lazy to pay their water bills. That was the narrative that was put out even by the then deputy director of the water department, who got on Channel 2 and said, well, these people could pay their bills. We don't know. We're doing this massive shut off because we don't know who's unwilling to pay versus unable to pay, because all we see is these people buying $1,000 cell phones and $500 gym shoes for their kids and fancy cars. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, at that time, I didn't own a television. I don't watch a lot of TV anyway. I didn't have a vehicle. My kids didn't have $1,000 gym shoes. And I was on my adult son's phone plan, who was in the military. And it's like, okay, so you're just neglecting the fact that I know that I'm not the only one that was paying large water bills because of your managerial incompetence.
I love the phrase, these people. It makes
Yeah.
my blood burn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
Marguerite,
Mhm.
you mentioned the lawyers were paid. The lawyers were paid, and the governor was let off with no charges, and all
Yes.
of the
They
elected
all got
officials
away
and
with
state
it.
officials in Flint also, no charges against anyone.
Mhm.
It also was reminding me that the day, I think it was within the same week that the water affordability plan in Detroit was released, and then water bills were raised in Detroit.
Mhm.
Water payment
Not only
bills.
that, Jen, but if you remember, at the same time the city was going through bankruptcy, and
Mhm.
Judge Rhodes said that he agreed with us, but felt he didn't have the authority to say, don't shut off people's water.
Yeah, the bankruptcy played a huge piece in what was going on with.
Yeah.
And can we do a reminder that Flint, when we talk about those people and the Black population, that we're talking about 90,000 people.
Yes.
Flint had 90,000 people at the time that they were poisoned. Citizens, Michigan, United States citizens, if that makes a difference. People,
Mhm.
90,000.
And children with
Mhm.
Children that have had their lives irrevocably damaged. Absolutely.
I mean, everybody, I mean, I was out there passing out water for weeks. And I heard the most horrific stories afterwards about how even like people's animals were affected, right? Cats that sit down and, how cats lick themselves and clean themselves. Well, they just rolled around on poison floors. Dogs were dying because they were getting poison water, and they started crying about the fish. You're putting
Mhm.
poison water in there with the fish. And several of the places that I was at when we were doing the water, when I first started, were actually cutting off the UPC symbols because they had heard people were turning them in for cash. And I said, well, they might need the cash. This is like huge. They have to go to the place, some place to wash their clothes, and I said, if
Mhm.
you're giving it out as a gift, then you give it as a gift. Otherwise, put it back and don't do it. Because this is just saying that you think that you're helping thieves.
Yeah.
And I threw a fit, and they stopped doing that. They just needed somebody there to remind them.
And I just wanted to uplift one point. This is now going on in Benton Harbor, Saginaw, in other places. And we're not going to even deep dive into the fact that all those that are not being systematically shut off or poisoned by lead are being poisoned by PFAS,
Mm-hmm. Oh, don't get me started.
which is a forever chemical. These people can never get rid of the PFAS if they've ingested.
We've all got it.
Yeah,
They
it's
put
in almost
PFAS in
everything.
everything.
Nicole,
Identifloss has PFAS. The pizza cartons have PFAS. The packages that we use, they all have
Yeah.
PFAS. So they don't want something to stick to it, so they put PFAS on it.
Mhm.
And for the longest time, they were testing city water, but they weren't testing the wells. So there's a lot of wells that have not been tested, which would, by the way, would include your farms. Most of the farms are on well water.
Yeah.
So PFAS is a huge issue that we need to work on testing for, to have ourselves tested to find out how bad it is. Because let me tell you, when you get PFAS contamination and get cancer for it, you don't last very long. It's a very horrible cancer that they don't know what to do for it because it's so new.
And Andrea, thank you for jumping in on all this. And I think it's a good transition, moving into talking more about you and your story. And we brought you, you know, particularly to talk about Line 5 today. And I'm eager for you to bring people up to date with what's going on. But your story with PFAS is very personal. And PFAS is also a water justice issue. And it's something that, you know, we're working to resist and get rid of. But why don't you move on? And if you're comfortable sharing a little bit about your personal story related PFAS, and then more about who you are. I'm excited to have Andrea with us. Longtime activist. I think that we met with the Light Brigade stuff.
Yeah.
Even before we started working on water stuff together. Some of that was probably water related, that we were sending out messages with the Detroit Light Brigade. We've done a lot of stuff up in Mackinac and Petoskey related to shutting down Line 5. I'm excited that Andrea is now on leads the Anishinaabe Democratic Caucus under the governor. That's exciting. She just got a job promotion. She had a new job, and then she got a job promotion at Michigan Environmental Justice Council. And so if I haven't said before, for those of you listening, I just feel really just privileged to be able to call these folks friends and comrades, but also just really blessed that they have made themselves available tonight to talk to us, because you heard from Nicole, you know, some of what's scheduled for World Water Week that's coming up this week. And also Andrea has really been instrumental in organizing and leading what's going on Thursdays. She'll talk more about that. But yeah, Andrea, if you want to share more about your heartbreaking story related to PFAS or anything else that you want to share, and then move into Line 5, we welcome you.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. I'm really honored to be here and to be able to talk to people about what's going on, because that's what I'm finding is that we just don't know. People don't realize what's happening to our water. I'm going to introduce myself in my language first before I start. So it's going to be Wasande Koi Indishnikas, Wakanakasingo Dawa in the Nadojaba, Makwa Nadodum. So what that is I'm just saying that my name is the Northern Lights Lady. So like those northern lights in the sky. I'm from Little Traverse Bay Band of Odawa Indians up in the Petoskey Harbor Springs area, and I am Bear Clan. I am the protector of the forest. So I think that's part of what started me on all of this. When I first found out about Line 5, it was a secret. Nobody really knew. Tribes didn't even know that that was buried there along the from upper Michigan to lower Michigan. It's a 70-year-old pipeline for those that don't know. Does everybody know what Line 5 is? If you don't, raise your hand so that I know how far I got to go back. Okay, we got one. Okay. So it's a 70-year-old pipeline that's under the Straits of Michigan. It's supposed to have only lasted 40 to 50 years as a pipeline in the water. It should never have been built in the Great Lakes. Never. It's the wrong place for it. We actually have 2 lakes up there, Huron in Michigan, and they have different currents. One goes north and south, the other one goes east and west, which gives it that extra push on the pipeline, a 70-year-old pipeline. It's in Bridges. And they're the ones that were in charge, are responsible for the largest oil spill in Michigan, the one in Kalamazoo, which still has not ever been cleaned up and probably never will be. There's only going to be so much we can do. At one point, when the Kalamazoo ruptured, they saw that they had, all their equipment went down, all the gauges flipped down, and they didn't know what to do. They did not follow policy or their procedures, because what they decided to do was pump more through for 17 hours. We had heard that there was an oil spill in Kalamazoo, and what we did was that we started, getting the Dawn dish liquid, trying to help the animals, and we had volunteer lists. Enbridge came in, put a big old fence around it. Nobody was allowed in. Michigan citizens had no rights, no responsibilities, no need to know what's going on back there on our lands, in our water. And that was tribal lands. That was part of the Nottawasepi band tribe. And they spent a lot of money to help clean up that oil spill. They said they spent millions of dollars, and they never got any recompense for that. That was just, helping out Enbridge. So we have the same company up north. And when Governor Snyder left, not only did he put the Flint fiasco in play, putting 90,000 people in jeopardy and animals and everything, but he is also responsible for the tunnel, that proposed tunnel that is going to be going through. The MPSC permitted it in December. We have never seen the plans for that, but the MPSC decided this was the best company to put a pipeline underneath. They're supposed to do hydro drilling under the water, like a couple of 100,000 feet or whatever. It has never been done. They have never done it that far in our type of water that we have. Our land still moves up north. I don't know if you know that. And in the wintertime, when there's a lot of ice and stuff, you'll see, I know I get it. There's different videos and people are out there showing where the ice is like crawling across the ground. It's because our land is still moving. We were part of the ice age, and it's obviously still happening. And it's really terrible how this is going to affect our people and tribes. I'm speaking I put my tribal hat on now. What happens to tribes when pipeline companies come through is that we have to deal with man camps. They bring all these people, transient men from all over the country. They say it's Michigan jobs. When they put one out here in Ypsilanti, we checked the parking lot. The only car from Michigan was the guy who had to sit there in the middle of winter in a truck and protect the pipeline. Everybody else came from all over. That's the only job. He probably made what, 10, 11 bucks an hour, if that. And we get man camps though. It's as documented with line 96B, I believe it was. The FBI had to do sting operations over there, and just recently, like last year, and found out Enbridge employees were doing human sexual trafficking with Native American women. Our women were disappearing. Nobody knew what was going on with them, where they disappeared to. And that's what was happening, human sexual trafficking on a tribal reservation. And there's laws for that. You would think, why isn't this against the law? Our crimes don't even get reported to the DOJ. They don't, because we are federal. So our laws are different. And because this is from non-Native people who did these crimes, there's different laws. So because we're Native and they're non-Native, they don't get prosecuted, they don't get hunted, we just disappear. So that's what we're scared of. Every woman, every man, every child up north is scared when that tunnel comes through, that they're going to disappear. It's terrible. I'm afraid for my family. I've got family up there. I'm up there all the time. I'm on my tribal election board. I know my people. And I'm terrified that things are going to happen to them, and I'm not going to be able to stop it. I'm doing everything I can to stop this pipeline. I'm doing everything I can to shut down stop that tunnel from being built. And we have actually got the pipeline is technically on shutdown, but Enbridge, the company that the MPSC, Michigan Public Service Commission, decided was the best one to put something in our Great Lakes, has been operating illegally for the last 3 years. Governor Whitmer pulled their easement They are trespassing, operating illegally, still making a profit. And they were Governor Whitmer appointees. She picked them. They're going against democratic values because we have we have like at least 3 or 4 that I know of resolutions against the pipeline and the tunnel passed on the Democratic floor at convention. So they went against democratic values. And they still have jobs. I've been calling for their jobs since December. This is against the Constitution. The Michigan Constitution says they must protect the Great Lakes. Giving the job and permitting a company that is operating illegally and actively suing the state of Michigan is not protecting the Great Lakes or its citizens. And we've been fighting, tribes are fighting right now. After the MPSC did that crazy, insane passing of that permit, tribes have now filed appeals. So we're waiting for those court cases to come up. I have a question, Valerie. You're on mute, dear.
I'm sorry, I was waiting for you to be done.
I didn't have that long.
No, I was totally waiting for you to be done. I didn't mean to interrupt what you were saying. It's so important that we all show up this week to that's I wanted to be able to talk about that, but please finish what you were saying. I'm sorry.
Okay. So Pete, did you have something?
I can wait also.
Okay, thank you. So that's where we're at. It's that we're in litigation against Enbridge, which is a Canadian corporation. So it's an international billion-dollar company that our state is fighting. We've been asking President Biden to enforce the shutdown orders and shut down Line 5. He can invoke a presidential order right this very second and send the National Guard out there and our union. You know how many jobs we have if we shut down that pipeline and had to remove it? You know how many jobs that would make? Bunches. We would have so many, hopefully, Michigan union workers. That's who I'm pushing for. Not like when I went through the parking lot and checked out here when they built pipeline. But we have to protect our water. We really do. Right now, we're being attacked on all ends with our water. There's PFAS in it, which is those forever chemicals from 3M. I believe that's in Wisconsin, right? Wisconsin or Minnesota, one of the two. Our Attorney General is actively suing them also on our behalf. Our Attorney General is really badass. I hope I can say that without getting you upset, sorry. But she is. That's the only way I can think to describe her. She is actively, we put her in office to fight for Line 5, and she's doing it. She has, from this day she started there, she has been an advocate for to shut down Line 5. It shouldn't be here. We should not be dealing with it. And we did not use much. I believe when they did the Pipeline Safety Advisory Committee, we determined that we used like 5%, which we could truck in on a truck from Wisconsin and not have to put our waters or our lands in danger. We have had so many oil spills, not just in that little area, but it goes through our whole state. It comes in through up by Baraga, comes across down through the Mackinac Bridge, comes down to Detroit and goes to Sarnia. We are a shortcut right now. That's what we are. We are a shortcut to Canadian profits that put our land and our water and our people in danger. This needs to stop. We all need to step up. Call the write a letter, email President Biden. He's got us on his website. I do that all the time and ask him to shut it down. That's where we're at. He has to. And it's gonna, and tribally, I hate to say this, I'm a chair and founder of the Anishinaabe Caucus. I don't know if I can talk much about that, but we are between the water issues that we're having in our state, Line 5, and the PFAS, and then the wolf hunting that he's allowing. I don't know if tribes will even vote for him. I'm terrified we're going to be stuck with a horrible president, more horrible president, because I'm against the war. And I don't know how we're going to live through it. And I can't guarantee that we can get tribes to vote because we're going to be impacted. And telling them Trump is worse isn't helping if we got a pipelines coming through that will end up with women being killed. Either way, we'll
Oh,
be
Andrea,
impacted.
you have said so much, and I know you have more to say, and I want to give you space to say more. I also want to come back to a couple things. You mentioned the man camps.
Mhm.
That's something that I've just learned about in the last, I think, 6 months. And it's a whole nother show, literally. And we are. I'm talking to a couple folks who we're going to have on either at the end of this month or early next month to talk more about what that means for Michigan, what that means for our Indigenous women living in Michigan, what we can do, and some action steps that we can take to really support shutting that down and keeping people safe. So thank you for bringing that up. And if you're listening, know that we'll have more information through Motion to share for you. And there's other resources we can connect you to learn more about that. I also wanted to come back to Enbridge. So we know that Enbridge is operating illegally because Dana Nessel told them to shut them down. And so what's happening? Where are we with that? And Nicole mentioned as part of World Water Week, folks are going to Cincinnati. What's that all about?
Yeah, there's a court case with Dana Nessel versus Enbridge. And it basically we're going down there to support her. She has supported us with this against this fight, and we're going to support her and let the people know down there, the judges, peacefully, of course. We're not doing anything now, any direct actions or anything. We're going there peacefully and just let people know that we really care about what happens up here and that this court case needs to be fought on Michigan territories and not in federal. This is our fight.
So Enbridge really wants this court case to be managed in federal court as opposed to Michigan court. And we can all guess why that is, right? We look at who our federal government is right now, who's in seated positions. But we trust Dana Nessel, and it's Michigan, and we want her to continue the fight and win the fight right here. And so that's why we're encouraging people to show up in Cincinnati, and particularly, like Andrea said, to support her for being the voice that we needed to be. It's hard to get an elected official who says she's going to do what she does, and Dana has done that.
And Fleur has too. She said that she would shut down Line 5, and we're in court with them, and she did evict them. You know, that's two big pushes that we didn't have before them.
Yes. Thank you. Andrea shared a great video with me. I don't know if we're going to have time to get to it today. We'll see how our time goes. If not, I certainly will share that out when I share this information out. But Andrea, just want to share a few minutes about what that video is so people can look for it.
Okay, this is about the caucus, the Anishinaabe caucus had a project for the master's program with the C's at U of M. And we did a video regarding the Line 5, Enbridge, and tribal people and how it's going to impact us, how we feel about it. And I really think it's a beautiful video. When I watch it, I get teary-eyed, and it's got a lot of people that I care about and people who mean a lot to me, people who are fighting. And I think that's a big thing is that one thing is that we're a whole bunch of warriors, you know, and it's a lot of women. You know, I'm really amazed when I walk out there to a group and this is mostly women standing there, you know, and it's like, one, I'm like, dude, where are you guys at? And two, it's like, who cares? We're going to take this crap down anyway. We are strong. Yes, I know some strong women.
Feels exciting to be surrounded by strong women. And we've got Pete with us. Pete, you want to jump in with your question?
Yes, I have several questions. Well, you brought up a lot of stuff, Andrea. This
tip of the iceberg.
Yes, I'm sure of that too. The one thing I'm trying to understand is you said, did you say the man camps were on the tribal reservation?
Yeah, because our reservations aren't like locked off, right? Ours is on Petoskey, Harbor Springs, Mackinac. I mean, most of Michigan, really, if you look at the map, all of the UP is on tribal reservation land, and half of the bottom part is actual tribal seated and unceded tribal lands.
So So is this on unceded land? There's no way you could prevent them from doing the man camp there?
No, actually, they have bought so much land up there. If you look on the property maps now, and Mackinac County commissioners have given them a lot of land. They're trading land because they can't sell county land, but they can trade it. So they're trading land and the last one I know of was in April. And they got traded 2 parcels of land and $1.5 million, but that's not a sale. So yeah,
Wow.
that's what we're dealing with.
All right, other thing, did you say that of all the oil that comes down that pipeline, only 5% goes to Michigan?
Yes, that's what I've been told. I got that off the Oil and Water Don't Mix site.
Wow, that would
Yeah.
make a great protest sign. Line 5 means 5% goes to Michigan.
Yeah, we tell that. They try to, at first they said we use like half of it, then they went down to like 25, then they're like 18, and we're whittling it down. But the Pipeline Safety Advisory Committee found out that we use about 5.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And this court case in Cincinnati is when?
Thursday.
Thursday.
Yeah.
there-
It's actually Water Day. The actual World Water Day is on Thursday. I took that as a sign from Creator. I really did.
Nice. What are the things
Yeah.
that President Biden could sign an order to do what for them to?
To enforce the shutdown of Line 5. He can do in a
Okay.
presidential order right this second and end all of this. End it all. We wouldn't have to worry about it no more. We just have to worry about getting in the our labor unions in there. I mean, if you're evicted from your place, what happens? You are automatically got your doors locked, and the sheriffs come in and bring your stuff out, put it outside, right? No, they're continued to operate illegally for 3 years. Where's the National Guard?
3 years. Wow.
3 years, yes.
Yeah, I remember after that eviction, we were also excited to go up and see Enbridge evicted, and then
Mhm.
no, they're still
They're still
they're still
operating.
working.
Yeah. They actually invoked their own 1977 pipeline treaty. Over the natives. They tried to silence our treaties that we don't matter and silence us, and then evoke their own treaty.
Andrea, I have a quick question.
Yes. Oh, you went on mute. There you go.
All right, then we can come back to you, Pete, if you have more questions.
Oh, no,
Mine's,
I'm not.
were you at the Michigan Democratic Convention?
Yes.
And that's where you had the caucus, the Anishinaabe caucus? Is
Well,
that
we
right?
have meetings regularly. You can look at our website, AnishinaabeCaucus.org, for more information there. But yeah, we go to convention. We have monthly meetings. We're trying to shut down Line 5. We got a Monoman bill passed where we're naming Monoman, which is wild rice, as Michigan's native grain. It's the first one in the United States that's been named native. Other ones have been state grains. And we also have got milkweed is waiting on the governor's desk right this minute to be signed, so that it won't be considered a noxious weed, so they will not be able to spray it on public lands. That's a huge win for the bumblebees.
I just wondered, I'm part of a Democrats club, and we're having a meeting. We have a monthly meeting, and it's tomorrow night. And we have, pardon me?
When is it? You broke up a little bit.
Oh, we have monthly meetings on Monday nights, and it's tomorrow night. And I was wondering if you'd like to be a guest speaker at our meeting.
I would, but I probably can't do this month, maybe next month.
Okay.
Because I'm all booked up getting ready for I'm going to be part of the World Water Week in Lansing. So we're getting ready for that. I got speeches and press releases to write and conferences and get the food for the bus. It's going to be a long week, but amazing.
You know, it's just that I wanted some specific details about what is it, the pipeline and the tunnel. to announce to my team members, members in the Democratic Club. Some of the people in the club went to the convention and they gave a little bit of a report, but that was not in the report. So I have a few words at least, or a few paragraphs even that I could read, but it'd be nice. We do it it's hybrid, so we do it on Zoom as well. So if you were able to zoom in for even 2 minutes or 5 minutes and just say something, it would be, I think it's important information that we need to know, we need to have. And I hate to wait another month since it's
Yes, now. All right, I'll put my email in the chat
okay. And then we can
talk. I don't know what like I said, I'm really stretched thin. I got the candle burning on both ends and in the middle at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you though.
But I can try. And there's information on the website also. We have under the stuff that we're working on. Line 5 is up there.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, maybe you could do a sneak preview with some of the information that's on the website and the video that I'm going to share out, and then have Andrea come next month. It's one of those things that's an urgent issue, but will still be an urgent issue a month from now. And I think that after Thursday's court hearing, we're anxious to hear back too from Andrea about where we are after the court. Is it going to stay in Michigan, and where do we need to push and pull?
President Biden did it all. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I will say that Andrea did an amazing job filling up the bus that she organized to leave from Detroit, but there's still a bus that has seats available. Pete or anybody else, if you're interested in traveling to Cincinnati, there's a bus leaving Wednesday with Oil and Water Don't Mix, and there's information on their website. And Oil and Water Don't Mix is also really working to put pressure on Biden. And so if you want to get involved in that campaign, that's the work they're really leading right now. Yeah. Susan's got her hand up. Susan, you want to jump in?
Oh, sure. Thank you. And I put something in the chat about it, but I literally am wondering why we don't hear anything about what was Nestle's, I believe it is now Blue Triton, taking 500,000 gallons of water out of our aquifer every day for $250 a year. And I know that this just has to do with equity. It has to do, it's we've got people, we're shutting water off and their children and all that craziness. Why that is going on, and I don't understand. And is there anybody working on trying to change that?
The best that we could do, and we've tried, this will be like, I think these bills were introduced the last 3 sessions. We had some to try to block it off, because the township Everett, they had sued Nestle for their water. It had went to court. We had public comment over it. MPSC again ignored 80,000 comments. But really, it turned out it was the laws. They can't stop them unless they stop the farmers also and people from drawing the water. So we were trying to change the laws. When Yusuf Rabi was a rep, and his bills are still out there, and we've been trying to get them passed. It was part of the Great Lakes Compact. We had one that would close the small bottle loophole, so they couldn't put it in the small bottles. We wanted one that would, they couldn't take it out of the Great Lakes Basin, because once it leaves, it's gone, and we want to keep our water here. And then the other one was the to put the water into a public trust that DNR would be enforcing over it, which at the time I thought was good, but with some of the crazy stuff DNR has been doing, I'm kind of wondering. But so that's what it's been. But the bills haven't gone anywhere. We've been under Republican rule for a long time. This was our first time that we've been out of Republican rule. We've had a trifecta. But a lot of the legislators that were in the purple areas were afraid to move. They were afraid to pass anything because they wouldn't win next time. The Republican powers in their area still controlled their votes.
Do
I
you
just
by
wanted to
any-
say also to touch on what your question and what you were saying. Also, Senator Baer has sponsored the bottled water tax, where she's going to tax them per bottle
Yeah, we've been fighting
for
against
getting
that
bottled
one.
water as well.
Yeah,
So
we've been
we're really
fighting
working to
against.
get those passed.
Does
Mhm.
anybody know the background of that? How on earth did it ever come about?
With the pop bottle laws, and water
Mhm.
was left out of that because what bottled water wasn't popular back when they did the pop bottle laws at 10%. At one point, Michigan was a mess. Everywhere you look, it was bottles everywhere.
Oh,
So
yeah,
they
I'm
did
talking
that
about,
$10, that 10-cent thing, and people started keeping it. And if they left it, somebody would come and get it who needed a dime. So now they're trying to do it for the water, but we're fighting that because of the fact that when impacted people have emergencies and we need bottled water, they shouldn't have to pay the 10 cents.
right, I'm talking about the background of how on earth did they ever allow a bill like that to happen? $250 for what? 100 and some million? I don't even know. I can't do
And
It's in
that.
last
how the-
time I counted, they were
it's in
getting
how the water
400
is-
gallons a minute.
Yeah, it's how the water is drawn out. If they stop it to where you can't use this much X amount of water, it affects the farmers and how much they can pull when they plant and water their farms.
So
then
the farmers are using an amount that's comparable? I'm sorry to interrupt.
Probably not.
Okay,
Probably not, but that was the stopping
Okay.
point.
I gotcha.
Yeah,
Thank
you
And
can
also-
Google it.
very much.
It's all over the place. I'm giving you tips where you can Google though.
Actually,
they
I have
also-
read quite a bit, but haven't been
Yeah.
able to find the background of it,
But
you
they
know?
also use that as an excuse because what they fail to realize is when farmers use water to water their crops, it
We get it
goes
back.
back through the soil into the underground aquifer.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And Nestle extracts it, or Blue Triton, or the devil is a liar, whatever they prefer to be called, pulls the water, it goes into a bottle. And the kicker is I've researched, and all the profits go to their main subsidiary, which is in Switzerland.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and here's an unknown fact. At one point, Nestle had on their website that MDEQ said that the water was clean, so they never tested. So now we're finding arsenic, we're finding lead, we're finding PFAS in these waters. And we're not testing well water that much. They just started it just recently. So you could actually be paying for your own poison.
Oh my God.
Well,
Yeah.
and
It
need-
gets deep. The deeper, the more you dig, the worse it gets.
It does. And just again, the deeper you dig, the worse it gets. The more you know around water stuff, the more angry and frustrated and sad and depressed you get.
I'm trying to
And
fight.
the more you are right, the more you are in the fight, the more you're feeling like you're doing something and you are making wins happen, as we talked about earlier in the call, and being together and building camaraderie and friendship with folks. It makes you feel better, while you're doing the work. So I want to encourage you all that aren't involved in this kind of way to find ways to get involved. And it's going to be different for everybody. Some people will jump on that bus to Cincinnati. Some people will call the elected official they're already in relationship with and say, hey, this is something new I learned about today, and I want to make sure you're paying attention to. Somebody will join a postcard campaign with the Sierra Club. There's different ways that, and I don't know if they are doing a postcard campaign right now, but
we're starting one.
So lots of ways to get involved in many ways. But I wanted to just share, particularly for our guests today, what I know a little bit about some of the folks on the call today, and just how proud I am of my church, the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Detroit, because if we are highly represented on the guests here today. Susan Matthews is the chair of that coalition. So I want to thank the First UU Church of Detroit for showing up so strong. And Pete is in not too far in Southfield. And so it doesn't surprise me, right? Because if you're a Detroiter or in the surrounding area, you know, and you want to know more about how to help with this fight. But I also want those of you that are further out to realize that your voice is just as important, if not more important, because there are so many voices coming from Detroit and Flint particularly, that we need these other voices too. And I particularly want to, Betty Jane, I don't know you, and I want to, Betty Jane, I want to welcome you. In particular, I see you got Troy on there, and I've learned from Water Warriors, in fact, Valerie Jean here, that some of the voices that our state needs to most hear from are people in Macomb County, out in Troy, also folks in Grand Rapids, if anybody knows folks in Grand Rapids. And where was the third place, Val, that we really need to hear from folks?
The first place was Macomb. There's so much like misinformation being, I'm sorry, I'm with the grandbaby. There's so much misinformation. We definitely need Macomb. Most important.
Yes.
All of the, there's, I might have to share it with you, and then maybe you could share it with all these folks, like a fact sheet that, kind of explains all of that.
Yeah. And Betty Jane, I saw that you came off mute. Did you have anything specific to add or ask?
Well, I just wanted to say thank you so much for this presentation. I'm a suburban mother, and I had not had the experience that many of you had. However, my heart is with you, and I hope my vote is with you. And it is us working together that's going to make a difference. And I'm one vote, I'm one voice. I intend to do something now that I've heard more. It's kind of like we get caught in systems, and the systems don't work for us. And yet we can work together. And when we work together, we have God.
Thank you. Betty, is it okay if I reach out to you as a person from Troy and pull you in a little bit more in this conversation with some specific ways that you and folks from your community can help?
Sure.
Awesome. Thank you. We've got less than 10 minutes left. I pulled Valerie back in our spotlight, and I'd just like to kind of give the three of you the last 10 minutes here with specific things you want people to take action on. Anita Jones made a comment in the chat that one thing that we can do is to reach out to our Michigan electeds to put pressure on an alternative nominee for the Democratic president. I keep saying a miracle has to happen between now and November. Sounds like a good pressure point to take, because I think for a lot of reasons, people are making decisions to consider not voting for Biden.
We are the miracle.
Yes. Thank you. So Andrea, Nicole, and Valerie, how would you like to send us out tonight?
Well, I put a bunch of things in the chat.
Yeah, she did.
I couldn't find the Highland Park one though. So if you have a link to that, I'd appreciate it. I couldn't find that one.
I guess I just wanted to say that I thank you all for attending and hearing our stories and learning about ways to get involved. And I did want to say that also me and Valerie host a show that airs every week on Wednesdays. You can find it on Facebook, YouTube, all of our social media platforms. It's the People's Water Board puts on, called Water Wednesdays, and we interview guests from community to legislators from the Michigan and even around the world. And you can go to our page and look at all of our back shows, and we put out a new show every week. But I just want to say,
Nicole, I'm so glad that you remembered that, and I'll send
Yes,
those links out when I send the information follow-up from this, and things that showed up in the chat, I'll send up as well. I'm so
yeah.
glad that you brought that up. I forgot to mention it myself.
No, it's
Valerie and
okay.
Nicole have the variety of people that they have interviewed is just amazing, right? Andrea's been on the show. A lot of folks representing things are happening in Michigan, but all the way to countries in Africa, people that they have come, things that are happening in the South, down South, they have people come up. And so it's just a tremendous resource that I don't think enough people know about. And I want you all to know about. So Nicole, thank you for raising that. And I'll make sure people get that
Yes,
information.
Thank you.
yes. And I just wanted to say thank you. And I had a pleasure talking to all of you, and I hope I get to talk to you again soon and you all become comrades in the fight.
Thank you, Nicole. It was
This,
really,
it's Anita Ruby. I just want to say that I'm going to be co-chairing the Great Lakes Pioneers Detroit, and I had it in mind that because it's the 10-year anniversary of I Do Mind Dying, that I would like to invite you all as a panel to discuss the arc of your activism since then till now, because I still think enough people have not seen I Do Mind Dying. So I'll be in touch with you all about that.
Thank you. And then since we got Valerie, did you have anything you want to say?
Well, I'm grateful to have been a part of this call and to and witness such amazing storytelling that that Nicole and Andrea offer. It's so important that in these moments when we tell our stories and it touches other people, it brings them in. It shows the love that we have for each other and really all of us and the earth and the animals and all the ecosystems and everything. So I'm really grateful to have been here to witness that and be a part of that with all of you. And yeah, shut down line 5, water is a human right. We let's together make a water affordable for every Michigan resident. Let's do it. I mean, right now we're about to cross the finish line, so here we are. Thankful for all of you. That's it.
Amen.
And I was just going to say that we're getting ready to start World Water Week.
Yeah.
So everybody, when you drink your water this week, take a big smell, take a big look at it, thank it for being there, sing it a song, strengthen that water. It's here for us. We come from the water. We're part of the water. Everything we eat is part of the water.
Yes.
Celebrate our water and fight for it. And
Mhm.
hopefully we'll see you in Lansing.
Yes.
Yes. Well, thank you again, both so much for being here and sharing stories, hard to share stories. Again, on this week right before our big water week, just so much is going on. And I'm so glad that you were able to be here with us tonight. And again, thank you. First UU and UU and surrounding communities for joining us tonight. There's so much work to do and so many ways to be involved. And the fact that you showed up to spend your Sunday night with us instead of drinking green beer means a lot on the St. Patrick's Day that some folks are celebrating in different ways. And I'm sure they'll catch up to the video. But it was great to be able to have some conversation with some of you tonight on this call. I like to, when we have particularly frontline organizers, impacted folks join us. Our organization, with the support of others, helps to provide love offerings, stipends for our guests, but I also often ask them, and I want to ask Andrea and Nicole and Valerie if you would share your Venmos, Cash Apps, way that people could support to you personally if they feel so moved to share that in our chat, and then I'll share that out to community as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you all for joining and interacting with us tonight for this very timely meeting. I was thinking when you go out into this world and you're drinking your water this week and thinking about it being World Water Day that the UN designated on March 22nd. And People's Water Board has celebrated that for many years. And last year we decided it was going to be World Water Week, and we're continuing that on. So share that in your conversations when you're having with people around the water cooler at work or wherever you may be. I think even just putting that bug in somebody's ear, letting them know that it was important for the UN to designate a day for World Water Day, and that a group that's celebrating and recognizing it all week. And the more we talk to our friends about the things we care about, the more people will get engaged and take action. So again, can't say thank you, Miigwech, enough for being here with us tonight. And carry on and reach out to me if you want more ways to get involved or you're feeling like you're not hearing enough from me. Peace.
Thank you all. Peace.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.